Hey guys, welcome to Rosie's Dessert Spot. In this episode, I'll be teaching you how to make this very easy sprinkles cake. I'm working with a 8-inch cake and a 6-inch cake. I'm adding a little bit of buttercream to my cake board. That'll help my 8-inch cake adhere to the cake board. Pressing it down when it's nice and centered, and then adding in my vanilla buttercream. Just piping that on. Then I'll add on my next layer, make sure to center it. Then when I'm happy with its positioning, I'll press it down in all areas. And then just continue building your cake like this. For the very last layer of cake, I'm using the bottom of the cake, and I've turned it upside down, that way it's nice and flat at the top. Then center that and press it down. And then start adding your crumb coat. Now the crumb coat helps to grab all of the loose crumbs and sticks it to the cake, so your very last layer of buttercream won't have any crumbs in it. And I'm also making sure to press firmly against the cake, that way all the air pockets have been filled. I'm adding a bit of buttercream to the top of the cake as well, and then just tidying it off. So pulling it in towards the center of the cake, but first I did go around the cake to lift those areas up. Then I put that into the freezer for a good 15 minutes, that way the cake doesn't shift around when you're adding the final layer of buttercream. Adding to the top first and using my spatula to flatten that out and shift the buttercream to the sides. And I'm adding some more buttercream to the sides, and this time I'm adding a fair bit of it because we are going to be taking off a majority of the buttercream with our scraper. So cover the whole outside of the cake, then using a bent scraper, gently go around the cake, scraping off the excess and keep going around until it's nice and smooth. Then take off the top section of the cake as well, just smooth into the center. And this is a 6-inch cake. I followed the exact same steps, and now I'm just covering it with red buttercream instead of white. I'm using the same motions, and this cake is sitting on a 6-inch board which is attached to a 12-inch board. Reason being is that it makes it a lot easier for me to work with the buttercream, to add it on and take it off as well. So adding on generously, then using my bench scraper to scrape down the excess and smooth it all off. And then smooth off the top as well, just bring that buttercream in towards the center. And then I'll be popping that into the freezer for at least a good 20 minutes. That way it's all nice and hard and we can handle it with our hands. Next I'm going to prepare the bottom tier. So I've got my sprinkles in a cookie sheet here. I'm adding a plate, that way my cake can sit onto this plate. And it'll give me good working space to start adding my sprinkles. So I'm grabbing a handful of it and just pressing it up against the cake. And even though this has been sitting in the freezer for a good 15 minutes, the sprinkles actually stick on really well. And kind of press and lift your hand, press and lift your hand all the way up to the edge of the cake. So that gives you really good coverage. Now just continue to do this around the whole cake. And if there's any empty spots, I like to go in after I've covered the whole cake and just fill in those areas, the same way that I'm doing here. Then I'll move on to the very top of the cake. And I'll add it the exact same way, just sort of pressing it in, moving it around. And this is a really good way to fill in the spaces at the very top, where there's the edge. It seems to be like a problem area. That way you can kind of shift them over to the side and then press in between your hands, between your fingers, and cover those edges. So don't feel too stressed that they're not sticking when you're working on the sides. You can fix it up when you're working on the top. Remove all the extra, pat it all down so it's nice and attached. And then to remove the sprinkles from the cake board, just run your finger along it, and whatever doesn't want to come off the cake board, just press it up against the cake to secure it. Just like so. Now I'm adding my extra thick straws. I'm adding these because I want it to be able to support the weight of my top tier. So I'm using the AmeriColor Gourmet Rider and just marking on the cake where I need to cut it. That way it sits flush with the frosting. And that'll make sure our top cake doesn't sink and destroy our bottom cake. Now I'm releasing my cake from the cake board, just running a spatula around the whole of the bottom. Reason being is if you were to take it off directly from just one side without going around the whole cake, some buttercream will remain stuck to the bottom cake board, and you'll have really uneven cracked edges. And because it was frozen, we can handle it with our hands very easily and just kind of lift it, stick it wherever you need. And then just rotate your turntable to make sure that you have it all centered. I'm adding just a little gold ribbon around the cake, just trimming off where it needs to start and finish. And then using some non-toxic double-sided adhesive on one end, and that'll stick it to itself. Then using a little bit of glucose syrup onto the bow, and that'll help it to stick to the cake as well. Just hold it there for a couple of seconds and you're done. That's how you make a very simple 2-tier sprinkles cake. It's super cute for your kids. I'm sure they will enjoy helping you out when you're making it. The great thing about this cake is that because you're putting it into the freezer and the buttercream is nice and firm when it comes out, it won't misshape when you press it. Obviously, there's a limit. If you press on it too hard, you will dent the buttercream, but it's actually pretty sturdy. And that was this week's tutorial. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will catch you next time.